Hello, my friends. Assalamu alaikum, which means may peace be upon you. I would like to share a thought today and then we will explore it in the light of Quranic teachings. So let's begin. Thoughts create feelings. Feelings develop our attitude. Attitude comes into action. Repeated actions become a habit. All our habits become our personality. As will be our personality, so will be our destiny. So let's see the connection. Thoughts lead to feelings, feelings lead to attitude, attitude lead to action, action leads to habit, habit forms our personality, and that personality determines our destiny. Now the question is, can we afford to create a single wrong thought? I don't think so. My friends, now let's explore this chain, that is thoughts, feelings, attitude, action, habit, personality, and destiny in the light of Quranic teachings. So the first point is thoughts. Thoughts create feelings. My friends, the Quran tells us very clearly that our inner self, that is our soul, needs purification. We must keep it pure. Allah says in chapter 91, verses 9 and 10, indeed, he succeeds who purifies it, that is, purifies his soul, and he fails who corrupts it. This very clearly tells us that controlling our thoughts is the first step to stay away from that corrupt mindset or a corrupt thought that leads to corrupt feelings. My friends, that is why the Quran commands believers to think good, avoid suspicion, and not even entertain negative assumptions. And this is very clear in chapter 49, verse 12. My friends, it is very clear from what I have shared thus far that Allah does not want us to have any negative thoughts. Rather, He wants us to live in a state of thankfulness. And if you look at the teachings of Quran collectively, it is very clear that there is no room for any negativity, because a believer is always in a state of thankfulness, always grateful to Allah for His blessings. Now let's look at the second part. Feelings develop our attitude. My friends, our emotional inclination, what we feel attached to, begins to shape our outlook. For example, if we feel envy, anger, or arrogance, our attitude changes accordingly. That is why the Quran urges believers to keep their hearts soft, grateful, and God conscious. My friends, Quran clearly tells us to exercise patience. For instance, it says, Inna Allaha ma sabirin, which means that Allah is with the people who exercise patience. And likewise, Allah tells us to stay away from arrogant attitude and gives us a great example of Iblis, the Satan. He was arrogant, and that is how he became Satan. So my friends, Allah's book is clearly telling us to avoid any negative feeling, because negative feeling will develop into our attitude. Now the third point, attitudes come into action. My friends, once attitudes settle, they start appearing in our actions. For example, a proud person acts proudly. A grateful person shows gratitude. My friends, it is very clear from the teachings of Quran that a true believer cannot develop a negative or wrong attitude, because A true believer is a person who is always grateful and thankful to his Lord for all the blessings he has blessed him with, and therefore his attitude will always be positive, and that will save him from any wrong actions. That is the reason that Allah says in Quran that those who truly believe and perform good deeds, they are the ones who will succeed on the day of judgment. My friends, a person who is a true believer will not do anything which is wrong. He will not be involved in wrong actions. So my friends, it is very clear from this that true faith actually is the fountain of all goodness, good values, good thinking, good attitude, and everything else we can imagine. Now the next point, repeated actions become a habit. My friends, habits are built by repeated choices. It is for this reason that Quran talks about all the good things we must do constantly, like regular prayers, fasting, spending in the way of God, helping people. All these good actions or good deeds, which are actually a reflection of a person's true faith, they keep us on the right path. They help us to develop all those wonderful things or wonderful habits which keep us close to Allah, keep us close to God. My friends, our good habits define our ongoing wonderful spiritual condition. That is the reason Allah is even telling us to avoid the company of those who may mislead us. He specifically tells, Kunu ma sadiqeen. That means live in the company of sadiqeen, honest, truthful, good people who are on the right path. So I hope this is also very clear now. The next point, habits become personality. My friends, our personality, what we consistently think, feel and do, actually becomes our identity. The Quran affirms that internal change is the first step towards external reformation. Allah says in chapter 13, verse 11, and Allah does not change the condition of a people until they change what is in themselves. My friends, it is very clear from this verse that our Creator Allah wants us to change ourselves from within. And how would that be possible? That comes with true faith. And it is that true faith which actually takes us away from the bad habits we developed in the past. So my friends, true faith in Allah is not a small thing. It is the biggest thing that can actually take us away from anything wrong. So I hope this is also clear. And the last point is, personality shapes destiny. My friends, Allah says in Quran chapter 40 verse 17, that day every soul will be recompensed for what it earned. No injustice today. My friends, according to the Holy Quran, destiny is not random. In fact, it is the result of the path we choose. And how do we choose the path? That is, when we become serious in knowing the purpose of our creation, and that leads to the struggle we make to know the answers to all the questions which must be answered. So my friends, based on what I have shared thus far, now let's ask ourselves the question, can we afford a single wrong thought? Of course no. My friends, even a single thought matters, because if it is left unchecked, it can spiral into something much greater. My friends, it is for this reason that Allah, our Creator, precludes the possibility of even the initiation of such a wrong thought. For example, He says in chapter 24, verses 30 and 31, "Tell the believing men and women to lower their gaze and guard their modesty." My friends, the Quran teaches mental discipline because a wrong gaze or thought is not harmless. It is the seed that can grow into major consequences. So, my friends, I will finish by saying that our thoughts are not small. They are actually the beginning of our destiny. Therefore, we must protect our inner world. It's a sacred place. Thank you for listening, my friends, and I will finish with a small prayer. May God purify our thoughts, beautify our hearts, and shape for us a destiny of peace. Thank you and Assalamu alaikum.